artists, it's day 103 and I'm carrying on with the contemporary portrait today. I'm at a stage of this painting now where I can start to deconstruct. This is not necessarily something that you have to do, but I kind of like the idea, so I'm going to do it for this particular portrait. Now to deconstruct, I kind of start to just play. I'm playing with paint at this point, just throwing it on with a palette knife and smoothing it off with a brush. Now I can't tell you really why I'm doing this. I think I just like the idea of her almost peeping through something. You know, Siobhan's got really big hair, so she seems to always be poking her nose through her hair. The nice thing about her big hair as well is that it creates all these lovely shadows on her face. So with me having worked with the low and mid-tone values until now, we don't really see them very much because everything is sort of in shadow, but I now start putting the lights on as well, so we start to see the shadows that the hair is throwing on the face. But to start off with, like I say, I start to mess with just kind of livening the canvas up a little bit. Until now it's been quite green and relatively monotonish, so I start just throwing some blue around. The blue came in because she was wearing a little denim dungaree at the time, and so the blue fitted. And like I say, it's quite instinctive at this point, so I'm really just playing with paint and trying to sort of grunge it up a little bit, because I don't want it to be so accurate. I don't want to end up with an almost photorealistic painting, so on purpose I'm deconstructing it. Now I also start to put some highlights on the face now, starting with the lower highlights at first, not going immediately to the brighter highlights. And by the end of this painting I will still need to have some highlights to go on, you know, because the paint was quite wet, so I wasn't getting seriously bright highlights because the white was contaminating with the colors, the wet colors that were underneath it. I'm also not 100% happy with the structure of the nose. I think I've lost it a little bit, so I'm going to have to come back there and just fix that up. So today is about putting the highlights on. Now if you can cast your mind back to when we were doing contemporary light, I'm doing exactly the same thing here. I've painted from the darker to the lighter, so now right at the end I am placing the light onto the structure of the face. If you're at all unsure of what I'm talking about and you haven't seen the contemporary light video, then please by all means go and have a look at it, where I start talking about light as a subject matter being handled quite differently. Because the whole thing with light is that we're not painting the subject so much as what you're painting, how the light affects the subject. And the same goes for what I'm doing here. There's quite lovely strong streaks of highlight on her face, and that's how I'm handling. I'm doing it exactly the same way. I'm placing the lights onto the already established shadows, low tones and mid tones. And one thing I need to mention here is that when I do start placing the highlights, I'm actually not scribbling away. You know, on the sped up footage it appears that I'm just kind of flying through it, but I'm actually not. It's quite a slow, deliberate process. I have a look at my source material, isolate a piece of highlight and place it carefully. So here I've slowed down the footage a little bit so that you can actually see how I'm looking at my source material, considering where the highlight has got to go, and put it down very carefully. Once I've placed it down, I might go and do a little bit of blending, but that's also another thing about contemporary work, or certainly about the way that I approach contemporary work, is to try not to do too much blending. I do like to do a little bit of blending. I know there are artists that will just place the work, and that's fine. That's the way that they do it. I tend to place it and then just sort of soften the edges a little bit, just to slightly blend it in so that they don't look sort of cut and paste. And that just seems to work for my style. It's not because it's the way to do it. It's not a right or a wrong thing. It just seems to suit my style a bit better. But like I say, there are artists that will place blobs without blending them in, and they just really work well. So as far as the technical aspect is concerned, the paint that I'm working with now is mixed with 50-50 terps and alkyd, and certainly on some of the very brightest white areas it's almost paint straight out of the tube. There's very little medium mixed with it at all. So I'm working with a mixture of relatively soft paint, not terribly soft, and paint right out of the tube. I'm doing that of course because I'm now wanting more opacity than I did before. I think it's pertinent to note at this point that contemporary painting needs to be quite active. I can't really do it sitting down. You know, I can paint photorealism sitting down, and certainly when I'm painting on little canvases, it's quite easy to just sit at my easel or at my art table and paint. But in terms of contemporary painting, I've got to get up and move around. It takes your whole body almost to get involved with your contemporary painting. And it comes from the entire action of your shoulder and your waist and the movement of your body as you're working with your canvas, all over your canvas. So it's quite an active art form. And in fact, when I've been standing painting for some time, I can get really tired. It can take it out of me quite a lot. And that's probably one of the reasons that I enjoy contemporary painting as well, a little bit more, I suppose, because it is so much more of an action than it is just sitting painting. One really gets involved with your painting. I'm sure for those of you that are new to contemporary painting, it's starting to get clearer and clearer that contemporary painting is not as finite as some of the other styles that we've looked at in the past. It's not as easily described. It's not one way of doing things. And it's certainly not finite in any way. It can be a case of anything goes, but in my opinion, I think the one thing that is really important to note about contemporary painting is that more than any other style of painting, I think contemporary painting comes from the inside of the artist. And when I say any other kind of painting, of course I'm talking about the painting that we've spoken about so far. I haven't gone anywhere near things like expressionism at this point. So I'm at a point now where I'm just fiddling, so I've got to stop painting now because the paint is actually too wet for me to carry on. And all this painting really needs now is a couple of really strong highlights on the face, and I'll probably do some touching up on the nose and maybe some of the shadows. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. So tomorrow will probably be the last day of this painting. So I'll see you tomorrow for the completion of this painting, and in the meantime I know that you will like and share, especially if your name is Faith Smart. Faith shares every single video. She deserves a medal. Thank you so much for joining me in day 103, and I'll see you tomorrow in day 104 where we finish up this painting. Bye. That's what you want to do.